It isn't the mountains ahead that wear you down. It's the pebble in your shoe. Muhammad Ali. On today's episode, I am sharing with you a throwback from the early days of the podcast. This content is very vital for all of us business owners, whether you're just getting started or you've been in it for a minute. So check out episode 118. You have the power to be the boss of your own life. I'm your host, Monica Allen. I'm a wife, mom, entrepreneur, best-selling author, lifelong learner, and your biz bestie. I have a love and passion for all things small business. Growing my own company from $700 to over 7 figures annually, my goal is to bring you inspiration, business-focused topics and tips, encouragement, and a community that helps you launch, grow, and scale your business, whether you are a dreamer, a side hustler, or a seasoned entrepreneur. You are listening to the Become Your Own Boss podcast. I have said for a number of years that I think everyone should take a class called Business 101, no matter what your major is. This should be a required class. This would allow every student to learn the basics of accounting, marketing, and finance. And since I was a business major, there were some things that I took for granted, things I thought I knew and things that I expected others to know. But I have found over the years of working with customers and individuals in the process of launching their business that many people do not know the very basics of making money, the basics of charging people for their time and getting paid adequately for the products and services they offer. We know how to make money working for someone else. We know we need to show up on time, get the work done. But I mean making money as a business owner. And by making money, I mean being able to pay yourself a salary. This may not be the case right out of the gate, but somewhere down the road, you should be actually making money in your business. You should be able to write yourself a paycheck. So today we're going to talk about some very basic aspects of business. If you have been in business a while or making money in your business, this episode will seem basic and very elementary. But because I'm here to help those getting started or those new to their business, these are things that despite being a business major, I did not know going into my business, or I knew them, but I did not really utilize them. I learned about it in school, but going from college to corporate America and then into my own business, I had totally forgot about financial statements, what to do with that, some of the basic accounting procedures. Those are things that just weren't in the forefront of my mind because I was so focused on getting the customer what they needed. When we think about business failure, we think of businesses failing because they made one big mistake or made one really bad decision. And sometimes this may be the case. But as the quote from Ali states that I read at the top of this episode, it isn't the mountains ahead that wear you down. It's the pebble in your shoe. It is often the small things that can take you down, the small things that can harm your company the most. The tips for this week are ones that you think are simple and go without saying. But we're going to talk about them here because I have met many people just starting out that did not have these things in the forefront of their mind. I am one of those people. So let's jump into our tips for today. Tip number 1, revenue and profit are not the same thing. Let's first talk about one financial statement that I look at on a regular basis, the profit and loss statement, or P&L for short. The P&L has a very basic formula. Revenue minus expenses equal profit. So simple, right? So let's break it down a little bit more. Revenue is the money you take in from the sale of your product or service. Expenses, that is everything that goes into making that product or providing that service. That includes the cost of goods, labor, utilities, advertising, insurance, web hosting, domain names, rent. The list can go on and on. You subtract expenses from your revenue, and what you end up with is profit. The goal is for this number to be positive. If this number is negative, you spent more than you made, and doing that for a long time is a problem. You will be out of business. I left corporate America 8 years after leaving college. So when I stepped into our first business, my focus was getting business in the door and getting the product made that our customers purchased. Looking at our financial statements were not top of mind. reconciling our books on a monthly basis was something I wasn't even taught in B school. Even after taking Accounting 101 and 102, I left college without this very basic business knowledge. Now, I was a risk management and insurance major. There were no entrepreneurship classes offered at that time. And though I did take entrepreneurship classes in my master's program, it was more focused on the viability of your idea, marketing, and writing that business plan, which I still have never written for our 18-year-old company. And focus on a P&L was definitely not part of my day-to-day in my corporate job. One of my favorite financial statements is the profit and loss statement, primarily because it allows you to compare month to month your revenue. Are you growing? Are you declining? It leads to you asking questions. I can remember about 4 years ago, we saw a decline in our revenue, and we kept asking, what is happening? This should be a busy time of year for us. Well, we found that Google had changed an algorithm, and that had impacted our sales. We were no longer showing up on the very first page of Google when someone searched for fraternity or sorority gear. Another reason I like the profit and loss statement is because it allows you to see exactly where your money is going. When you set up your profit and loss statement, you want to make sure that you set up categories. And they can be broad categories, but you want to make sure that you categorize your cost of goods sold, your advertising, your payroll. You want to make sure that you outline those things so you can go back and from month to month, you can see how much am I spending in these areas? Did something increase and why? Do I need to decrease some things? We initially started out using Quicken because this is what we used for our home bills, and eventually we moved over to QuickBooks. But had I known then what I know now about caring for my books, we would have been on top of our numbers much earlier in our business. I think we actually could have been even more successful than we have been over the past 18 years. Now, for me to say this being a business major, this is what makes me so passionate about helping people with their business. Because it's hard for me to imagine someone who never took a business class but have a fantastic business idea. Knowing your books, knowing your numbers, making sure you're charging enough is extremely important for making sure your business survives. Tip number 2, profit and cash flow are not the same thing. So the first few years of being in business, I would look at our profit line each month or at the end of the year and say, where is this money? Because it is surely not in our bank account. Well, truth is, there are things that reside on your balance sheet, another important financial statement, that will pull money from your cash but will not reduce your profit. An example of this would be a loan payment or credit card payment. We had to get a loan to purchase our first embroidery machine. This monthly payment came out of our cash flow, however, did not reduce our overall profit. The only expense subtracted from the P&L in this case would be the interest on the machine payment. The actual payment on the machine reduced our balance sheet liability, but is not considered an expense. Tip number 3, understand your balance sheet. What is really crazy to me is that in undergrad, I learned the definitions of all of these financial statements. I understood them on a basic level. However, I did not have a practical use for them in my mind at the time. As a business school student, I only took the entry level to these classes. I did not have class projects to flush them out or have them make practical sense to me. So I imagine someone who has a great business idea or someone much like us that stumbled into our business by fulfilling a need that we wanted as students, not having any business class at all and jumping into understanding all of these statements and what they mean to your business. Well, the balance sheet gives you a clear picture of your assets and liabilities. Assets are items like your cash, accounts receivables, fixed assets, inventory. Liabilities are accounts payable, short-term and long-term debts. Think credit cards and loans. The remaining line item that is on this portion of your balance sheet is shareholder equity. Shareholder equity plus liabilities should equal your assets. If you have ever had to complete a personal financial statement to purchase a home, you have completed a balance sheet. Again, being focused on working in our business in the beginning and growing it, it took me a long time to get on top of these financial statements. Sometimes I still find that I can lag behind in staying on top of them. And this is why having a quality bookkeeper and accounting firm is imperative as your company grows. This probably will not be you when you first get started or your business is just a side hustle. But I guarantee if you can start with the knowledge of these statements and entering things correctly from the very beginning, you will always know where your business stands and you will be better positioned to succeed for the long haul. There will be no surprises. As you start on your entrepreneurship journey or as you continue on your journey, there will be mountains ahead of you. There will be legal issues. There will be client issues. There will be things that seem insurmountable. But in this case, we are talking about what seems like small things, those pebbles, those day-to-day things that should be paid attention to. Your balance sheet, your profit versus your cash flow, your profit and loss statement. So these are our tips for this week.
Thank you so much for listening today. I'm grateful for you. Next week, we are kicking off September, and that means we are kicking off season 5. Season 5 is going to be fantastic. You don't want to miss it. We are talking NFTs, Web3. We're talking about marketing and podcasting. And I am bringing you entrepreneurs from many different walks of life. So you don't want to miss season 5. You can make sure you don't miss it by subscribing to the podcast. Also, when you go and subscribe to the podcast, please take a minute to rate and review the podcast. Follow me on Instagram at Become Your Own Boss Podcast and on TikTok, where I like to give you inspirational tips and tricks for growing and scaling your business. Now is the time. Now is the time to level up, leave a legacy, and become your own boss. Really quick. Also, next week, a Boss Up Books episode, so don't miss it.